Hey folks, it's Piano Man Steve Lungrin here, and I've been getting a lot of requests lately to show step by step how I do my live streaming, my infrastructure and my setup and all of that. And so I thought I'd just take a moment here and shoot a video that's showing you the stuff that I'm using and the overall approach to how I do it. And I thought it would be fun for my piano students, even if they're not going to live stream, to see this, because this is an example of something. I think that when you're dealing with a teacher, sometimes that teacher has had an experience where the subject matter they're teaching, in my case, I teach a piano course, the piano came kind of naturally to me, and so I've had to kind of reverse engineer how I did it and kind of work out a method, and I have to really get inside the head of someone who it's not coming so naturally to. But I want you to understand that I root that in the experience of there are a lot of things that I've had to get at least somewhat competent at, if not good at, that did not come naturally to me. And I've had the same struggles that you have had, where anytime I talked to someone who was good at it, they didn't know how to talk to me about it in a way that I could understand. And one of them by far for me has been the technical support aspect of making music. I've never been good with audio production. I've never been good with, video production. I mean, a lot of you probably have noticed that I suddenly went from being like the guy who does this on the internet with the worst production value to suddenly jumping into the 21st century all in one snap during the quarantine here of the 2020 COVID crisis. But and it's because I finally came across a few people that were able to explain some things to me like I didn't already know what they were talking about. So I just want you to know I feel your pain on that. So I'm going to hopefully be able to give some of you some insight on how this goes. And then I hope that you'll also take with you the fact that when I'm teaching piano, I really do try to think about it from the point of view of someone who really does not get it as easily as I do, and how can we break it down into normal speak? If you knew what I know, then you wouldn't need me to be teaching you this stuff. So my plan is I am going to get away from this more highly produced video segment where I'm actually using the rig that I do for my live streams. And I'm going to do a pretty low production value video just from my phone so that I've got the mobility to show you different things. And then we'll come back to a shot like this where I'll wrap things up. So I'll see you in just a second on the other side, and we'll start taking a look at what I have in my studio here. Okay, well, as promised, this is the very, very low production value, just right from my phone walkthrough, because this will give me the mobility to show you all my equipment. Now, this shot that you're looking at right now probably looks pretty familiar, reasonably close to what you see when I do a YouTube video, performance video rather, or a live stream. This is my wall hangings and all that stuff, but this is not what I'm staring at. So let me go back to my perspective here. So I have all kinds of stuff happening here in the room. And obviously, as you can see, I do not take as great a care with how the rest of my office looks as I do with how this part of my office looks. So let's get started. First, lighting. Lighting can make a big, big difference. So I got these on Amazon, and you can find them I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head what the brand is, but I just basically wanted to look for, photography lighting. And what had happened was that I found a little set of 3, and it gives you these 3 tripods, 2 tall ones like this one, with these are called exterior light or natural light. And then you have these silk umbrellas that feed through like that. And what they do is they diffuse the light coming out so that you don't get overexposed from the light. And then there's one short tripod, which I don't even stand up, but I put it behind me, and it does not use an umbrella. I'm just going to turn it off here. You can see I have it behind the chair. And what this does apparently, and I'm not a lighting expert by any stretch of the imagination, but by having two lights coming from either corner essentially, one to my right corner, one to my left corner, angled toward me, and then one coming from behind, this helps reflect back some of the light that's coming toward me, and it creates a more balanced lighting space. So that's part of how it looks. And to be honest with you, just to the naked eye, if I'm standing back here from where my camera angle is, you can't really tell because the lens is picking it up. But to the naked eye, this area looks darker than it looks like it should to the naked eye. It feels like maybe there's not enough light, but when you look at it through a camera lens, it ends up being just right. And obviously going straight on, that throws it off. But when it's behind the chair like that, just reflecting back a little bit, that area just sort of comes alive with just the right light. So that's the first thing. That whole thing probably cost me somewhere between $50 and $100 for all three, plus I got replacement bulbs in there. So I have extra bulbs, and these have their own switch on the back of the light. There we go. It's an on-off switch behind. The one in the left corner I have tied to a power strip where my keyboards and all of this stuff is all triggered to it, so it just shuts off on and off by that. This one behind me I have triggered to an outlet so I can turn it on and off with this wall switch. And then this one I turn on and off manually up behind. Doesn't matter how you have it set up, but that's just how I ended up getting mine set up. So lighting was important. It's an important part of creating the overall illusion, if you will. My camera. There's a lot of different kinds of cameras you could use. You could do this with an iPhone. You'd be surprised how many smartphones have wonderful cameras. But I had this Sony Handycam already purchased, basically. And I've had it for 10 years. And it's got HD capacity. And so what I do is I bought this little guy on Amazon. This cost me about $50, but this is an HDMI to USB converter box. So I run an HDMI cable from here in my camera down into that converter box, and on the other side I have a USB cable that comes out and goes into the back of my computer. In my case, I'm a Mac man, so I have an iMac. And the iMac is sitting right in front of me, but the camera sits just far enough above it that it's completely out of frame. So you never see it, but I can see a picture of myself, so I can see what you're seeing if I want, or I can read lyrics off of a screen. And so it's very, very helpful. That's how I can see your comments and all that good stuff. So that's really useful. And of course, the way I have the camera angle, you see the piano starting at about right here. So this stuff is never in frame either, but I've got the keyboard, the mouse. This is a little controller for my fan. I know that there are audio engineers rolling over in their graves and pulling their hair out if they're still alive right now that I'm running a fan while I do this, because they're saying you're getting unnecessary noise in your mic, and I just don't care. I have to be comfortable while I do this. So I do run a fan. I keep it cool because otherwise I go crazy. And, whatever leakage I get from that, I just sort of put up with. And then, so now you know that computer's an important component, and I'm going to show you some of those things for why. But that camera right there is what is the main camera hitting me for live stream. This one, which I have on a mic stand, this is if I'm going to do a teaching video. This gets an overhead shot of the piano. And then if I want, I can actually run both at the same time. If I want to show my face and the overhead of the piano at the same time, which sometimes I do. A lot of times I do one or the other, but it's kind of nice to have those choices. They're both plugged into the computer via USB. This is a Logitech, I think it's a 920C is what it is, I believe. Something like that. It's an HD webcam. Fantastic. It was about $100 and plugs in with a USB cable, gets an amazing picture. So that's a great place to start, and would be a perfectly fine live streaming camera as well. So to me, it doesn't have quite as rich of a lens as my Sony does, but I would be perfectly proud to go live with the images off of this if I didn't have that one. So that's an inexpensive place to start, and it would work just fine. My microphone. This is an Electra Voice, and it's a big condenser mic. And I bought this a while back. This is a hog. This cost me $900 in 2004. Okay. You do not need something this nice, but I got it for audio recordings. I wanted to make my own records and demos, and and I have kind of a big voice. You cannot pop this thing. I could not make enough noise. I could stick this in the back of a jet engine, and it wouldn't blow the mic out. So that's why I got that, and it's also really good at limiting the audio signal that's coming in to just kind of what's in the immediate vicinity. So you really don't get a lot of leakage from that fan back there. So I love this thing and I use it, but you could use any condenser mic, or for that matter, you could just use a nice, performance mic, like an SM58 by Shure, or any decent EV mic or whatever. You could just use something like that, but make sure that you get a pop protector. That's what this foam thing is. Now, why do I use this instead of one of the fancy ones that clip on here and have the little distortion screen in front of it for mostly for P's, so it doesn't go crazy? I use this because the other one is bigger and more obtrusive and gets in my face a little bit more, which for recording doesn't matter, but when putting video in there, I want people to have a clear view of my face as best as possible. So I just use one of these pop protectors like this, and it doesn't matter. They both do the same thing. And you can use that on a standard mic as well. It's connected with an XLR cable. And if you follow it around, it goes into this. These two speakers are pretty much not a part of what I do much at all anymore. So they're just here for decoration right now. But these are really nice Alesis monitor speakers. They're great. They give you a nice flat reproduction of whatever you've got going into your system, and you can tell they don't come with a lot of what we would call, they're not going to amplify your effects much. So you get a really good idea of what your EQs and your effects, your reverb and such are doing to the sound, because these don't overdo it. It's very much a flat representation. When I first started doing this, the best way that I could go live was just stick my phone on a mic stand or on a camera stand over there in front of me, and I was singing just out into the room and letting the piano come out of these. But that's not what I'm doing anymore. So they just kind of sit off, don't make them much of a part of the conversation. This is a hard disk recorder that I'm using as my performance mixer. It's a Yamaha AW16G. You don't need this machine by any means. This can be, when I make albums, I actually record all my basic tracks onto this, and then I take those and make them lossless audio files and then put them inside software where I do my mix downs. But I just think it's really easy to capture audio on this, and I can burn CDs and such from here, and I just really like the way it works. But I'm not using it for its recording capacity when I do live streams. It's basically a mixing board, like a live mixing board. And so what I've got going on is that here's my XLR cable for my microphone. Here is, I'm going into the left mono. I don't do a stereo signal out of the back of my piano, which you probably didn't see that. I just do a left mono out of my digital piano, and I run it into input 5. And then I say I want track 1 connected to input 1, and I want track 2 connected to input 5. And then on those tracks, that's where I have some presets where I put in a nice equalizer curve, an EQ curve for the vocal that's good for a male singer, and I put in a good EQ curve for a piano, and I put in a minor bit of compression to just help sturdy and even it out, and I also put in a little bit of reverb on both, okay? And then what I have going on is that since I do all my effects and everything here, this says stereo out. These two are left and right. They're going out of this machine and into this device, which is called, this is called a digital audio interface. This happens to be an Alesis IO2. So why am I telling you this? You don't need to get this machine, okay? You could do it on any mixing board that you have for a live gig. I could do it on this if I wanted. I'm going to show you. This is my Behringer. And when I play gigs, I tend to use this guy. I'm just going to set him out the way he would be at a gig. This is what I use when I play a gig out live. I have about 3 of these, and this is where I would plug in a channel. I can either do an XLR microphone here, or I can do a patch cable in one of these. It's got EQ for all. It's got a low, mid, high EQ for every track. Okay, and it's got a reverb for every track. And then over here, it's got what they call a graphic EQ that I can control for the entire overall sound and a main volume right here. Boom. And then what I could easily be doing if I weren't using this guy, which I just happen to already have set up in my studio, is I could run everything through here, and right here it says monitor, left mono, right. Left mono and right. I could run patch cables from here, one out of each, and that's what would go into the digital audio interface. So I'm just telling you that because whatever little bit of gear you've acquired to do a gig with is going to be fine. You can make this work with that, but you have to have an audio interface. What's the point of the audio interface? This device right here collects the sound that's coming from your soundboard and sends it into the computer. That's what the audio interface is about. Now, there are many who are going to say it's stupid to be running into something like this first and then into this, then into your computer. I know there are people who are going, they're just plugging their piano into one and they're plugging their microphone into the other, and then they're using their computer to do all of their reverb and their EQ and their effects. Now, I'm going to tell you why I don't do that. One, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good with this kind of stuff in general, and I'm not 100% sure how to work that out once I get the sound onto the computer and then have that be the sound that gets broadcast. But more important than that, you really have to have a high performance computer to be able to do that without having major blips and issues with your broadcast stream. The more you're asking your computer to do, the slower and the more likely you are to have skips and pops and all kinds of issues because of the processing power of your computer. So if you've got like a 6-core gaming computer, and you keep it really clean, and it's got a multi-terabyte hard drive, and it's got lots and lots of RAM, you might be able to do that. and have it be pretty seamless. But I don't trust my computer, even though it's reasonably new, to be able to handle that much processing power. And at the end of the day, I want to ask as little of it as possible so that I can have the absolute most seamless broadcast that I can have. So I do all of my prettying up of the sound on hardware outside, then send that here. Okay, now this has two settings. This has mono and stereo. Now what I've found is this. I run into the computer and go through a software called StreamYard. And StreamYard is going to take whatever you send it and make it a little bit flatter and a little more mono to begin with. So what I find is that by making this guy mono, I'm hearing, because this right here, this is my headphones. And I'm running these headphones into this monitor jack right here. By doing that and running this on the mono setting, and this is true whether you have an inexpensive, this was like $100 audio interface. You can buy more expensive ones with many more inputs. But by doing that, what I found was I'm hearing exactly what you're going to hear through StreamYard. And then I can make adjustments, add more reverb, add more EQ to the point where it really sounds good in my headphones. And when I get it that way, that's what you're going to hear. When I first started doing this, I was actually running my headphones out of this monitor, and it sounded beautiful and rich and deep to me. But then it was getting a lot flatter and a lot less rich in the transition from here through StreamYard. And it was really bothering me because what I was hearing during the gigs is not what you were hearing. I mean, you were hearing the right notes and all of that, but you weren't hearing the effects and everything that I was putting on my voice. So that was my workaround that I discovered, is if I use this as my monitor and then get it to sound good in my headphones from here, then I'm hearing what you're hearing. And then I can adjust it so that the final product is what I want it to be. That's not necessarily true if I'm just using a different program and making like a YouTube performance video, because, for example, Screenflow, which I go into using the same process to record a video that I'm going to post, doesn't deaden it down as much as the StreamYard live broadcasting software does. So, but for live streaming, I love StreamYard, and I'm going to show you why. But I have to make sure that I'm running into this and I'm putting it on the mono setting, not the stereo setting, so that I'm hearing in the monitor what you're hearing in the broadcast. And then I can make adjustments over here to my EQ, to my compressors, to my panning, and to my effects, meaning reverb or chorus or whatever, to the degree that it really sounds good. And then I'm getting a fair representation of what you're hearing, and then we're all on the same page. Okay, so then out of the back of this, there's a cable that is a USB cord that goes into this computer. And once that goes into the computer, that's where the sound is coming from. So this computer is receiving video from that camera out of an HDMI cable that converts into USB into one port. And out of that audio interface, it's getting all the audio that goes in through patch cables that I put together through my mixing board into this through another USB cable. And so that gives you an idea. And of course, then I've just got my digital piano. Any digital piano is going to work just fine. It doesn't matter. I love this one. I like the way this feels under my fingers. It's semi-weighted keys. For those of you who know the difference, that means that it's got more action on it than, say, like an organ, which is spring-loaded. But it's not quite as heavy as like full hammer action, and I really appreciate that. My joints like it a lot better. And I love the piano patch. They did a really good job with both the piano and electric piano patches on this. This is an instrument that I don't even think is in circulation anymore. It's a Baldwin Pianoville that I got in 2001. I beat the hell out of it, and I love it to death. So anyway, that's what I tend to use. So now I'm going to get off my phone, and I'm going to do a screen recording using StreamYard on that computer so that you can see how I take all the stuff that's piping into the computer and turn it into a live stream. So I'll see you there in just a second. Okay, so the final component is, so we've got all this stuff coming in. So let's just review really quick what you need, what you absolutely are going to need if you want to do like a truly professional live stream is you're going to want a decent camera, which could be anything from a smartphone to a USB webcam to a camcorder or something, you know, with a bigger lens like that. But they needs to be something where you can go into a decent computer. And I'd really recommend a desktop computer. One of the biggest problems that laptops tend to have with this is that a certain amount of your performance power on a laptop, no matter how beefy it is that it is giving a certain amount of its processing power to charging a battery all the time. Even when the battery's charged, it's still got to be tending to that. And then the battery overtakes if you have a power outage or something. So with a desktop, you don't have that at all, and so 100% of your processing power can go to your streaming. And so laptops can work. I'm not saying that they never do, but you will find a spottier record with laptops in terms of having choppiness in the video, little blips, little blurries, that kind of stuff. And obviously, you want the best possible internet connection that you can get your hands on, the highest speed internet that you can get. You're going to want to look at your uploading speed. If you can get it around, 50 is pretty good. 50 megs is pretty good. 100's better. Some people get all the way into the gigabytes. That's really good. But anyway, so those are things you want to look at. But you need some kind of a decent camera that you can run into the back of your computer or into a USB port on your computer. You have to have an audio interface. You have to have a device to take your audio signal and pipe it into the computer. You can go directly into the audio interface and just roll with whatever you've got, or if you are savvy enough to run the effects and such through software on your computer, that's fine. But again, I think that you're asking your processor to do a lot to run a live stream and also run a software that controls your EQ and your reverb and all of that. So I personally prefer using some kind of hardware like a live mixing board or a digital recording, like a hard disk recording station like I've got. So that's kind of up to you, but I like to do all of my sound doctoring there, send it to the audio interface, and then send that doctored sound into the computer already done so that my computer has a minimal workload for the processor. Okay? Now, StreamYard. Why do I use StreamYard instead of just going into YouTube or Facebook? Well, for one, by using StreamYard, I can do Facebook and YouTube simultaneously. That's a big one. Whereas if you go into YouTube live streaming or Facebook Live, you can only be in the one platform. The other thing I've found is that you actually get a cleaner signal going from StreamYard into those places than I do. I tended to find that, for instance, on Facebook Live, everything ran a little bit to the left, and I just could never pan enough to make up for it, and meaning that people would hear it almost all to the left if they were listening through headphones, and there was nothing that I could seemingly do about it. But by going through StreamYard, it balanced it out perfectly. So anyway, that's just been my experience. So StreamYard there's a free version, but you can only go to one platform at a time, so you don't get the benefits of being able to go to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. But you still get the other benefits of using StreamYard, and there's a limit to how many streams you can do in a month on the free plan, but you should at least try it. For me, I pay I don't know if I do the full pro, but I do like the in-between. It costs me about $25 a month, and I log in, and I can say create a broadcast, okay? So then when I do that, it opens this up, and I can say I want to send it to... Right now, I've got Kevin Lawrence's YouTube connected to mine as well. I can go up to 3 platforms at a time. So when he and I work together, we go to my Facebook page, my YouTube page, his YouTube page, and then I can share directly to his YouTube page, and it'll broadcast it there as well. So that way Facebook's doing the work, and I don't need StreamYard to send it to 4 different places simultaneously. But I can send it to my personal profile, my Piano Man Approach student community group. I can send it to my YouTube, Kevin's YouTube. So let's say that I'm setting something up and I want to go to my profile and I want to go to my YouTube, okay? Now I've got text saved somewhere that I can go in, but I'll just type something in here. So I can just say Piano Man Steve live. And then I can say, duh, you know what this is. Okay, so then I can decide, well, I want to schedule this for later. So I usually do this at around midnight the night before a show, and I can create a little thumbnail, which I go to a place called canva.com, and I can make my own thumbnails for this, but I'll just grab my typical live stream thumbnail that I tend to put in. It's out of date at the moment, but I'll put it up because we're not going to actually broadcast this. So then when I get ready to put this out there, up until the point that it broadcasts, you might have seen that thumbnail image is going to be on my YouTube page and my Facebook page, you know, letting people know with a clock counting down, saying going live in blah, 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 blah. So I tell it I want it to go, let's say, I want it to go tonight at 8:40 p.m., okay? And then I can say I want to customize this for each destination. So on Facebook, it's mostly the same thing on both sides, but on Facebook, I a lot of times will put what's in the title up here in the description as well. And then in YouTube, you don't need to. It's just the way that it works out. That's up to you. And you can decide in both cases whether you want it to be public, unlisted, private, etc. And then when you're ready, you say create broadcast. Now, I'm not going to create a broadcast because then that's going to go out to my YouTube and Facebook pages. So, but I just wanted you to see how that sets it up. I can actually schedule one of these, and it's great. And then that serves as an advertisement for people because they see it. It shows up as a post. So it shows up in their feed, and they go, oh, he's going live. So it gets people prepared, gives them some lead time to tune in. Now, the other thing that you can do on here, and this is what I'm going to do, is just remove that we're going to broadcast. I can say skip the sending it out, and let's just record only, so I can show you the actual software. So we're just going to call this test. This is what you would this is where you would end up if we had decided to go forth and create the broadcast on the 2 that I just set up. It'll take you to this page. It says you're entering the broadcast studio, and this shows you that your camera is working, and it shows you that your microphone is working. Now, this is what's great. Once you have a setup like this and you have that audio interface set up back here, now this, what was great is I set all this up only to do live streaming, but it turns out that I can podcast from this. I can do YouTube videos with the same setup, and I can also do Zoom meetings and Skype calls and all kinds of different stuff. Like any kind of a video chat, you are basically set up because every kind of video chat is going to have something like this little guy that says cam mic, and it's got that kind of like toolbox, looks like a little bolt or a screw or something like that. And you click on it, and you get to tell it, what camera are we using? So in my case, I've got, this is the FaceTime HD cam would be just the built-in camera on my computer, which would probably work, but it's not what we're looking for. Okay, it's got my overhead camera up here, shows the piano like so. Okay, which then I usually flip that around the other way when I'm actually ready to in my editing software. And then I've got my USB cam that we've been using. There it is. Okay? So that's great. So with any kind of platform where you're going to do video chatting, video streaming, you're going to have this. You're already set up. So, man, you're going to look better and sound better to whoever's participating with you because you can just set it up and use this space. Then for audio, okay, audio, you always want to say, I want the sound, my mic, to be whatever the name of your audio interface is. The internal microphone is going to be the built-in microphone on your computer. You do not want to use that because that's just going to get whatever's ambient in the room. My audio interface is called the Alesis IO2, okay? So that's what I use, and that is where any sound I'm sending to the computer is coming from that digital audio interface. And in this case, it lets me choose the speaker too, like what do I hear back? Well, I want to hear back also from there. But I could also set it up, I could also probably set it up so that you could hear something coming from the computer. I haven't tested that, but that might be nice because I know you can do a screen share within Screenflow as well, or within StreamYard as well. So anyway, there's that. And then, of course, you can set up a green screen if you want, which I have never done before, but it's possible. They've got that set up. So once you have that in place, now you can just say, let's enter the broadcast studio. And it says, you're not part of the stream yet, and you just say, well, let's add this to the stream, and boom, there I am. Now, this guy, this is another feature if you do the paid version for StreamYard that's really fun. This is the branding over here. It says brand. Okay, now they've got defaults for these, what they call overlays. This is their default overlay, and they've got a little software that they've set up where you can go in and take this and tweak it, add your own picture, add your own text, move it around the screen. And what it basically is it's got these elements that you're seeing here, right? And then the rest of this is the size of a video screen, but it's transparent and it's overlaid on top of what you're looking at. So I went in, took their stuff, tweaked it in their little software, and I came up with that. Piano Man Steve Live. It's just my little picture there. And I've got a couple different versions of it in case my camera stand gets bumped or whatever and I reset it. You know, this one's a little bit farther to the right. Tried it like that, but this is the one I like best. That tends to be positioned about right. And I've got everything kind of in frame the way I like it. Okay, so then up here where it says record, if you were actually sending it out and you were in there waiting for your broadcast time to show up, like we had set up before, it would say go live. And by the way, you don't have to schedule a broadcast. You can just say now in that same setup, and it'll tell you right in here when you're ready to go. You just click and say go live. And when you do that, now you're staring at yourself so you can see what the audience sees. You were smart. You're running your headphones into the audio interface back there as your monitor, and you've got it set on mono so that you can hear what the audience hears, and you've done all of your tweaking on your offsite, your hardware, whether it's your live mixing board or your audio recording station, you know, hard disk recording station, but you've got that set up so you can hear what the audience hears, and you can see what the audience sees. Now you go live, and you can tell what's going on, and comments will show up right here from any platform that you're streaming to. And then you can click on a comment, and it'll bring it up on screen, as I'm sure some of you have seen, and you can respond, and you can interact with people, and then you click it again on the screen. It goes back over here. It's fantastic. And then for me, you're seeing my whole screen up here. What are these? These are songs that I know I want to do. So a lot of times I'm just taking requests. If I know the words already, I don't even look them up. I just launch into it and I keep it on this screen. But if you ask for something that I need some lyrical help, I can either look it up by opening a new window like so, when I type in the name of the song and the lyrics and bring them up, or I've already got it up on screen because it's something that I planned on doing, like this one by Eric Carmen, although in this case it labels it as Celine Dion, but it's the same song. And boom, I'm ready to go. and I can read the lyrics, and it's not in frame, but it's right there for me to see. And occasionally you guys will see me on picture be like this suddenly. My arm will go up. That's because I'm coming up here and just trying to keep it going with my left hand and scroll down a little bit to catch the next bit of lyric. Then I come back here, continue the interaction, and when you're done, you just come up and you click stop where the record button is. And that's how it all works. So it's a really great system, and I think it creates a 10 times better experience for yourself as the streamer and for the audience. After having done it without the help of something like this for a while before I started doing it this way, I would highly recommend looking into StreamYard. There are other people that do the same kind of thing. I don't know how they stack up, but I love this. For what I pay for it, I think they do a tremendous job. And the only thing that I would caution anyone against is to make sure that you are running the mono setting on your audio interface and then adjusting your effects accordingly that way, because you want to be able to hear what your audience is hearing so that you can adjust it to taste from their perspective. So anyway, okay, so that gives you a good idea of how all of this works, or at least it's probably overwhelming at this point, but just understand I built this piece by piece by piece, and some of it's going to make more sense to you right now where you are, and some of it's going to seem a little out of your league. Don't worry about it. Just make the improvements that you can make right now that make sense. Maybe the only thing you're ready to do is to improve your lighting. Good. Improve your lighting. And then maybe the only thing you're ready to do is to add an audio interface. Okay, fine. Add an audio interface. But one step at a time, this stuff that kind of comes together and makes more sense. So if you are at a point where all of this seems so overwhelming that you can't even imagine doing it all, don't worry. You don't have to do it all in one shot. Just take the next step. Whatever out of this seems like something that, I do understand what he means by that, and I could do that. Do that. It'll prepare you for something else. Okay? So anyway, I'm going to close this out in a final exit video in just a second, and I will see you there momentarily. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've told you everything I know about this stuff. There are other ways to go about it, but this is what I've come to. Works out really well with the equipment that I own, and a lot of you probably have enough. If you're musicians like I am, whether you are really like actively professional musicians or just hobbyists, a lot of you have enough gear sitting around that you could probably pick up a few relatively inexpensive pieces of stuff just to supplement it and turn it into a pretty good little live streaming studio, and also to be able to make really, really good, highly produced YouTube performance videos if you want. So hopefully this has been at least enjoyable and at best very informative for something that you might be able to get some use out of. All right? Remember, if you're not having fun when you're making music, you're doing it wrong. If you're interested in my piano course, please visit pianomanapproach.com. It's all down there in the description. Check out my free webinar, all that good stuff. We'd love to have you if it's a good fit for you, and if not, maybe there's something useful to you, whether you become a member or not, just in the free content. So thanks a lot, guys, and have a great one.